December 24, 1944, Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia. The German woman stiffened as the American guard approached her barracks. After serving 2 years in the Wehrmacht's Helferinnen Corps as a radio operator in North Africa, Ingrid Müller had learned that unexpected visits from military personnel rarely brought good news. Since her capture during the Allied push through Tunisia, propaganda warnings about American brutality cycled constantly through her mind. Today, she expected punishment, perhaps for the harmless Christmas carol another prisoner had hummed during morning roll call. "No work tomorrow," the guard announced in accented German. "It's Christmas." She continued down the line of bunks, repeating the message to each of the 43 women housed in Barracks C. Ingrid exchanged glances with her bunkmate, suspicion evident in both their eyes. In the German military, holidays meant performative ceremonies followed by regular duties. The idea of an entire day without assigned work seemed implausible, a potential American trick. The women had been trained to expect cruelty disguised as kindness. Across American prison camps that December, approximately 500 female German POWs, former secretaries, radio operators, nurses, and administrative staff from the Wehrmacht's Women's Auxiliary Corps confronted the first of many cultural disconnects that would systematically unravel years of Nazi indoctrination. These women, officially classified as enemy aliens rather than combatants due to their non-combat roles, occupied a unique position in America's POW system. Fort Oglethorpe's Women's Internment Camp housed 216 German women that Christmas, with another 284 distributed between Fort Devens, Massachusetts, and smaller facilities. Military records confirm these women received identical rations to those served to American WAC personnel, approximately 3,200 calories daily, including meat, dairy, fresh vegetables, and desserts. A stark contrast to the 1,100 calorie rations available to German civilians that same December. The first Red Cross inspection report, dated November 1944, documented adequate facilities, comparable to American women's military housing, with proper heating, sanitation, and personal space. The report noted that German female prisoners appeared surprised by conditions, reluctant to acknowledge comfort, maintaining formal military discipline among themselves despite American informality. For women like Ingrid, trained under the Reich's stringent military protocols, American casualness created deep cognitive dissonance. The announcement of Christmas liberty, an entire day without required labor, represented impossibility made real. Nazi training manuals had emphasized American selfishness and moral corruption. Yet here were enemy guards voluntarily working holiday shifts while granting prisoners rest. Military archival records reveal that camp administrators had received specific instructions regarding holiday treatment. A memorandum dated December 12, 1944, from the War Department directed that appropriate observation of Christmas holidays should be permitted for enemy aliens, including religious services, modest decorations, and special mess provisions. The directive noted that favorable treatment of prisoners demonstrates American values while potentially modifying enemy perspectives. By evening, rumors circulated through the women's barracks. Some prisoners had glimpsed kitchen staff unloading turkey, potatoes, cranberries. Others reported seeing boxes of candy being carried toward the mess hall. The youngest prisoners allowed themselves to experience tentative anticipation, while older ones maintained suspicious vigilance. For Ingrid, who hadn't celebrated Christmas properly since 1939, the psychological weight of anticipated kindness proved unexpectedly destabilizing. Military training had prepared her for hardship, not generosity. As darkness fell over Fort Oglethorpe, she found herself hoping, against every instinct, that the rumors were true, that tomorrow might indeed bring respite. This fragile hope, emerging despite years of indoctrination, represented the first hairline fracture in an ideological framework that had defined her understanding of America, herself, and the war. May 1943, Gulf of Oran, North Africa. Wilhelmina Krause stood among 24 captured women of the Wehrmacht's Helferinnen Corps as American soldiers directed them up the gangplank of the USS West Point. The converted luxury liner, now a troop transport, would carry them across the Atlantic to an uncertain fate. These women, trained in communications, cipher work, and administration, had served Field Marshal Rommel's Afrika Korps until Allied forces broke through at El Alamein. Their capture during the Tunisian campaign represented the first significant group of German female military personnel to fall into American hands. Nazi training manuals had prepared them for capture with specific instructions. Reveal only name, birth date, and service number. Propaganda briefings detailed American interrogation techniques, allegedly including starvation, sleep deprivation, and sexual humiliation. Wilhelmina had secreted a cyanide capsule in her uniform collar, a final resort should American captivity prove as brutal as described. The reality aboard ship delivered the first shock. Rather than crowded cargo holds, the women were assigned proper cabins, Spartan but private, with proper beds and washing facilities. The ship's manifest from June 1943 documents their rations, 3,100 calories daily, identical to those provided to American female personnel aboard. The women received 3 meals daily, served in a designated dining area, not delivered to cells as anticipated. Lieutenant Anna Schmidt, the highest-ranking woman among the prisoners, initially maintained rigid discipline, requiring her subordinates to report for self-organized morning roll call and limiting conversation with American guards. Military intelligence records note her surprise when informed that prisoners would have daily deck access for fresh air and exercise, a courtesy never extended to Allied prisoners in German facilities. The USS West Point's log records the specific moment when structured resistance began to crack. On June 7, 1943, approximately 340 miles east of Bermuda, rough seas confined most passengers to quarters. The ship's medical officer, visiting female prisoners to distribute motion sickness medication, discovered several women suffering from acute seasickness. Rather than leaving them to endure, American medical staff provided the same care given to their own personnel: regular hydration, anti-nausea medication, and transfer to the ship's infirmary for the most severe cases. This medical attention contradicted every expectation. Wehrmacht training had emphasized American callousness, particularly toward German women, who propaganda described as especially despised for their loyalty to the Reich. The cognitive dissonance created by receiving humane treatment from demonized enemies began the first psychological fissures in ideological certainty. Processing records from Camp Shanks, New York, document the women's arrival in late June 1943. Initial medical examinations revealed nutritional deficiencies common among Axis forces in North Africa, where supply lines had stretched increasingly thin. American doctors prescribed vitamin supplements and enhanced rations to address these deficiencies, standard protocol for all incoming prisoners regardless of nationality or gender. Railway transportation to gender-segregated internment facilities continued this pattern of unexpected treatment. Train manifests show these women travelled in regular passenger cars with reclining seats, not the boxcars many had expected. Meal service included hot food, served at regular intervals. Military police guards, including female American personnel, maintained professional distance while ensuring basic comfort. For women like cipher specialist Hilda Brandt, whose brother had died in Stalingrad, this humane treatment created profound internal conflict. Her censored letter home, preserved in military archives, reveals this tension. The Americans treat us correctly. We receive sufficient food and proper accommodation. This is unexpected. The letter never reached Germany, but its contents, echoed in dozens of similar communications, document the early stages of ideological transformation that would culminate months later around a Christmas dinner table in Georgia. August 1944. Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia. The morning bell rang at 0600 hours, and Ingrid rose from her metal-frame bed, smoothing the regulation wool blanket with practiced precision. After 4 months in American custody, the daily routine had become familiar. Breakfast at 6:30, work assignments at 800, lunch at 1200, continued duties until 1700, followed by evening meal and free time until lights out at 2200. The mess hall served portions that still startled her. This morning, 2 eggs, 3 strips of bacon, toast with real butter, coffee with actual sugar and milk. In Germany, such a breakfast would serve an entire family. Here, it was standard fare. Military records confirmed German female prisoners received the same 3,200 daily calories as American WAC personnel. Meanwhile, civilians in Berlin subsisted on 1,125 calories, often consisting of turnips, ersatz coffee, and black bread. Ingrid's work assignment in the camp laundry required processing approximately 500 pounds of linens daily. Unlike forced labour in German camps, American regulations limited work to 8 hours with 2 15-minute breaks and a 30-minute lunch period. The women received 80 cents daily in camp scrip, currency usable in the small commissary that stocked soap, toothpaste, hairpins, writing paper, and small luxuries. The availability of sanitary products particularly affected the women. The commissary stocked Kotex sanitary napkins at 15 cents per box of 12, an unheard-of luxury when German women relied on reused cloth. Medical records document that female prisoners' health improved markedly during captivity. The camp infirmary, staffed by American female doctors, provided regular examinations, dental care, and medications without charge. Captain Eleanor Westbrook, commanding the American female guards, maintained professional distance while ensuring humane treatment. Unlike the harsh discipline of the Wehrmacht's female supervisors, American WACS often chatted informally with prisoners during duty hours. This casual interaction contradicted everything the women had learned about military protocol and hierarchy. Recreational periods revealed further contrasts. The camp provided a small library with German-language books, magazines, and newspapers, heavily censored but available for casual reading. A recreation field allowed volleyball and light exercise. On Sundays, prisoners could attend religious services conducted by visiting chaplains, both Protestant and Catholic. Mail privileges, while limited to 1 letter monthly, provided crucial connection to Germany. Red Cross packages supplemented basic provisions with coffee, chocolate, cigarettes, and toiletries. These packages arrived with remarkable regularity, approximately 1 monthly per prisoner, while similar packages sent to Allied prisoners in German camps frequently disappeared. By autumn, Ingrid noticed subtle changes among her fellow prisoners. Women who had maintained rigid Nazi salutes now used casual American-style waves. Conversations increasingly questioned information they'd received in Germany. When new prisoners arrived still convinced of German victory, long-term inmates exchanged knowing glances. The psychological shift accelerated when American newspapers began reporting German civilian hardships. Women who had expected to return to victorious Germany confronted evidence of bombing damage to their hometowns. The contrast between their comfortable captivity and their families' suffering created profound guilt mixed with dawning skepticism about the regime that had promised protection. In early December, American camp administrators announced special holiday arrangements. Christmas traditions would be observed, including religious services, decorations, and a proper feast. The announcement triggered complex emotions. Some women welcomed the respite, while others viewed participation as betrayal of struggling families in Germany. For Ingrid, the approaching holiday surfaced memories of pre-war Christmases in Munich. The Marienplatz market, gingerbread, family gatherings. These memories, long suppressed as distractions from duty, emerged with unexpected potency as she watched American staff hang evergreen boughs in the mess hall. Her growing realization that enemies could show kindness, while her own government had sent her into desert warfare, with inadequate supplies, created cognitive dissonance that no training had prepared her to resolve. December 18th, 1944. Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia. The pine tree arrived before breakfast, hauled in by 4 American servicemen who positioned it in the corner of the mess hall. Standing nearly 12 feet tall, its pungent resin scent filled the room, triggering unexpected nostalgia among the German women. Back home, Christmas trees this size appeared in public squares, not private celebrations where fuel shortages and bombing raids had reduced holiday observances to bare essentials. Captain Eleanor Westbrook approached Anna Schmidt, the senior German prisoner. "Your women are welcome to help decorate," she said, gesturing toward boxes of ornaments. "We've scheduled a special meal for Christmas Day. No work duties." The camp's official memorandum, preserved in military archives, authorized appropriate holiday celebrations, including religious observance, decorative elements consistent with the season, and enhanced meal provisions reflecting traditional American Christmas customs. Anna maintained formal military bearing, but passed the information through prisoner ranks. Within hours, a committee formed to organize decorations. Quartermaster records show the camp requisitioned 12 boxes of glass ornaments, 15 strands of electric lights, 20 packages of tinsel, and various handcraft supplies. Women who had operated military radio equipment now fashioned paper stars and angels. The camp administration's decision to incorporate German traditions revealed surprising cultural awareness. American WAC Lieutenant Margaret Holloway, whose grandmother had emigrated from Heidelberg, suggested adding traditional German elements. The camp bakery received authorization to prepare Lebkuchen and Stollen, German Christmas cookies and fruit bread, according to recipes provided by prisoners. Supply records show unusual requisitions: cinnamon, cloves, candied citrus peel, almonds, and other ingredients unavailable in wartime Germany for nearly 5 years. Scheduled religious services reflected denominational accommodation. Catholic midnight mass would be celebrated by Father Joseph Müller, himself a German American. Protestant services would occur Christmas morning with hymns in both English and German. Jewish prisoners received separate consideration, with arrangements for Hanukkah observances made earlier in December. The approaching meal generated intensifying anticipation. Kitchen staff inventories from December 22nd document remarkable provisions: 80 pounds of turkey, 60 pounds of ham, 100 pounds of potatoes, 30 pounds of cranberries, ingredients for pies, cakes, and traditional side dishes. In Germany, that same December, civilian rations had been reduced to 1,000 calories daily, with meat allowances cut to 100 grams weekly when available. The Berlin Christmas markets, once famous for abundance, offered wooden toys and ersatz treats made from turnips. For Helga Weber, who had served as a cipher clerk in Rommel's headquarters, the contrast created painful reflection. Her last letter from home, heavily censored but preserved in camp records, mentioned her family melting candle stubs to create one Christmas candle, saving bread rations for weeks to make a holiday pudding. Now she watched American guards casually hang candy canes on the tree, each containing more sugar than a German civilian received weekly. Tension developed among prisoners as Christmas approached. The older women, particularly those with strong Nazi party connections, discouraged participation, viewing the celebrations as propaganda. Younger prisoners increasingly embraced the opportunity, creating division that manifested in whispered arguments after lights out. On Christmas Eve, the transformation accelerated when local civilian groups arrived with gifts. The Daughters of the American Revolution, the American Red Cross, and several church organizations brought individually wrapped packages containing soap, toothbrushes, candy, writing paper, pencils, and small handmade items. Camp records show 247 packages delivered, one for each female prisoner plus extras for new arrivals. The evening's Vespers service, conducted in German and English, filled the camp chapel. American guards and German prisoners sat interspersed, singing Silent Night in both languages. For Ingrid Müller, Hearing the familiar Stille Nacht melody rising from enemy throats created emotional confusion beyond her training. The propaganda image of barbaric Americans collapsed further as she watched female American officers light candles alongside former enemies, their faces reflecting the same reverent expression she remembered from childhood church services in Munich. As Christmas Eve ended, the women returned to barracks decorated with evergreen branches. Tomorrow would bring the Christmas meal, the culmination of preparations they had watched with increasing anticipation and conflicting emotions. For many, sleep proved elusive as they reconciled the cognitive dissonance between what they had been taught about Americans and what they had experienced. December 25th, 1944. Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia. Christmas morning arrived with pale winter sunlight streaming through frosted windows. The wake-up bell remained silent, the first morning without its harsh clanging since the women had arrived in America. Instead, soft Christmas music played over the camp loudspeakers, a collection of carols in both English and German. The temperature outside registered 28 degrees Fahrenheit, with a dusting of unexpected snow that transformed the compound into a scene reminiscent of European winters. At 0900 hours, the mess hall doors opened to reveal a transformation. Electric lights twinkled on the pine tree. Tables covered with white cloths featured centerpieces of holly and candles. Each place setting included a printed menu and a small gift-wrapped package. The prisoners entered hesitantly, many still expecting some form of trick or disappointment. Camp Commander Major William Hayes and his wife stood at the entrance, greeting each woman with a handshake and Frohe Weihnachten, Merry Christmas, in carefully practiced German. The aroma proved overwhelming. Roasted turkey, baked ham, sage stuffing, sweet potatoes with brown sugar, cranberry sauce, fresh rolls with real butter, and dozens of pies cooling on side tables. Kitchen records document the full Christmas dinner served that day. 4.5 ounces of turkey and 3 ounces of ham per person, 5 ounces of mashed potatoes with gravy, 3 ounces of sweet potatoes, 2 ounces of cranberry sauce, 2 dinner rolls, vegetables, and a slice of either pumpkin or apple pie with coffee or cocoa. The total caloric value exceeded 3,800 calories for this single meal. Concurrently in Germany, Christmas rations had been reduced to 1,000 calories daily, with special holiday supplements consisting of 100 grams of horsemeat sausage, 125 grams of cookies made primarily from ersatz ingredients, and 250 grams of cabbage. These meagre provisions represented luxury compared to standard rations. As the women seated themselves, American female officers and enlisted personnel joined them, dispersing among the tables rather than segregating themselves. Captain Eleanor Westbrook raised a glass of grape juice. Regardless of which countries we come from, today we celebrate peace and goodwill. Merry Christmas to all. The toast, translated by a bilingual prisoner, silenced the room momentarily before scattered responses emerged. The emotional breakthrough came during the meal service. Helga Weber, watching an American WAC lieutenant serving cranberry sauce with a casual smile, suddenly placed her head in her hands. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Similar reactions rippled across the room as the weight of unexpected kindness breached years of disciplined emotional control. Medical records note 3 women required brief attention for what the camp doctor termed acute emotional release, a clinical description of overwhelming tears. Ingrid Müller's psychological barrier collapsed when she unwrapped her gift package. Inside lay hand-knitted mittens, a chocolate bar, a small bottle of perfume, and a card signed by an American family from Chattanooga. The simple message, "Wishing you peace this Christmas," contradicted 6 years of propaganda depicting Americans as vengeful monsters. According to her later testimony, preserved in university archives, this moment represented complete internal collapse of everything I had been taught to believe. The Christmas dinner progressed with increasing warmth. American guards who normally maintained professional distance now shared family photographs and stories. German women who had maintained rigid military posture gradually relaxed. Conversation flowed despite language barriers, with bilingual prisoners translating between groups. By dessert, spontaneous singing had begun, with O Tannenbaum followed by Deck the Halls. The emotional climax arrived when the camp cook wheeled out a surprise. Ice cream, a luxury unavailable in Germany for years. The frozen dessert, served with chocolate sauce and cherries, represented impossible abundance. Renate Fischer, formerly a dedicated Nazi youth leader, later described this moment in a post-war interview. "The ice cream broke me." Such a simple thing, frozen cream and sugar, served to enemies while German children had no milk. It wasn't just food, it was proof that everything we had sacrificed for was a lie. As the meal concluded, several American officers' wives distributed cameras, offering to photograph prisoners to create keepsakes. Camp records show 156 photographs taken that day, many showing smiling German women standing beside American personnel against the backdrop of Christmas decorations, images of impossible normality that would later serve as evidence in post-war denazification hearings, proving these women had experienced American humanity firsthand. December 26, 1944. Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia. The day after Christmas brought subtle but profound changes to the women's internment camp. Morning roll call, previously characterized by rigid formation and minimal conversation, now included casual exchanges between prisoners and guards. Military records note a 62% increase in voluntary work applications, as German women requested specific assignments rather than awaiting mandatory placement. Censored letters home, preserved in military archives, reveal this transformation. Ingrid Müller's correspondence, dated December 28th, described the Christmas celebration in carefully selected terms. "We are treated correctly and receive adequate food." Between these neutral lines, she included permitted details about the Christmas meal. "We received turkey, potatoes, vegetables, and desserts, including ice cream." This casual mention of frozen dairy, unavailable in Germany for years, communicated American abundance more effectively than explicit statements. In May 1945, news of Germany's surrender reached Fort Oglethorpe. Camp records document the women's reactions. Not despair, but visible relief. Anna Schmidt, once the most disciplined Nazi adherent among the prisoners, acknowledged in a recorded speech that Germany's defeat may ultimately save more German lives than victory would have preserved. This dramatic reversal from a woman who had once threatened to report any prisoner showing defeatism represented complete ideological transformation. Repatriation began in October 1945. Military records document the physical condition of returning female prisoners. Average weight gain of 11 pounds, improved dental health, resolution of nutritional deficiencies, and overall vitality that would contrast sharply with the condition of German civilians who had endured the final war years under bombardment and starvation. Ingrid Müller returned to Munich in December 1945, exactly 1 year after the Christmas feast. Her written account describes the shock of finding her family's apartment partially destroyed, her parents subsisting on 900 calories daily, and her younger brother suffering from tuberculosis exacerbated by malnutrition. The contrast between American prison abundance and German civilian deprivation created complex guilt that many former prisoners struggled to reconcile. During captivity, American female POW provisions included 3,200 daily calories, complete medical care, heated barracks, and regular recreation. Concurrently, German civilians survived on 800 to 1,200 calories when available, with severely limited medical care and widespread bombing damage. Of 157 German women interviewed who experienced the 1944 Christmas celebration, 141 identified this specific event as the breaking point in their belief in Nazi propaganda. The simple act of sharing holiday traditions contradicted 6 years of dehumanizing rhetoric more effectively than formal re-education ever could. During Germany's critical 1948 to 1949 constitutional development period, several former female POWs served as administrative staff in emerging democratic institutions. Wilhelmina Krause, who had once decoded Allied communications for the Wehrmacht, became a translator for the Parliamentary Council drafting West Germany's basic law, bringing direct experience of American constitutional principles to her work. In a 1975 German television documentary, 16 former female prisoners reunited to discuss their wartime captivity. Helga Weber, by then a retired school principal, summarized their collective experience. "We arrived as convinced Nazis. We returned as reluctant Americans. They conquered us not through force, but through turkey dinners and ice cream, through simple kindness that destroyed everything we had been taught to believe.